Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. I believe everyone who's here has attended one of our previous events and knows a little bit about Clear Dynamics already. So I'm just going to touch briefly on who we are and the sort of problems that we solve, and then I'll jump straight into the demonstration. So just as a reminder, Clear Dynamics, we're 13 years old. We're founded in Bendigo, in Victoria. And we were founded with the belief that there must be a better way to build and modernize enterprise software. So many of our early employees worked at banks and financial institutions as software developers, and they saw like the inefficiency and the difficulty that there was to build enterprise software. Uh, and and they founded Clear Dynamics to improve that. And so today, what we do at Clear Dynamics is we modernize legacy applications and shadow IT applications. And we're able to do that really rapidly because we're leveraging AI and automation, and we're taking those legacy systems and converting them into, modern, robust, cloud-based, scalable web applications. And to date, we've delivered over 140 different enterprise use cases across 10 different verticals. So just for more of a visual representation of what that actually looks like, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, these are some of the applications that we've started with, that we've modernized. So you can see we've got that green screen system at the top, we've got an Excel spreadsheet, and we've got an MS Access database. And then on the right-hand side, these are the modern web applications that have come out of our clone to cloud process. So these are the applications that have resulted from our modernization. So just to give you a quick reminder of the types of use cases that we solve, or what I should really say is the types of use cases or problems that our customers have when they start talking to us. So the first is where they have a digitization program, so moving from like paper forms to something more digital, or they're trying to solve for shadow IT, which is usually in the form of spreadsheets. And so our platform and our clone to cloud process, which is what I'm going to show you today, can basically ingest those spreadsheets or ingest those paper-based forms and convert them into working sort of scalable software. The second is what I would call core system augmentation, and that's where our customers are using off-the-shelf products. They need functionality that's related to that off-the-shelf product, but it's not built directly into it. So they need to effectively either customize it or find another way to deliver that solution. And our platform is a really good fit for that type of use case, and it's very easy to integrate it into those off-the-shelf products. And in that way, you're able to build sort of customizations on our platform. You're able to keep the off-the-shelf platform vanilla without any modifications, which means that it's easy to continuously upgrade it, and you kind of get the best of both worlds. And the third use case is, legacy application modernization. That's where you've got big, bespoke legacy applications that have been built by teams of software developers, usually over many years. We're able to ingest those applications. And again, we're applying AI and automation to automatically produce new modern versions of those applications that are cloud native. So for today's demo, I will I'll focus most of the time on use case number one there, which is digitization and shadow IT use cases, because they are nice and quick to demonstrate. They give you an idea of how the platform works, and then we'll touch on two and three as well, just briefly at the end. So without further ado, let's jump into our clone to cloud process. Now, I do have a couple of slides on this process, but before I do, we'll actually just jump into the platform itself, and then we'll come back to the slides in a sec. So for today's demonstration, what I'm going to be doing is I have a scholarships portal here, student scholarships portal. And, for this demonstration, we can imagine that I'm working with a university or a tertiary education provider who provides scholarships, and they want to turn this portal into their scholarship application and eligibility portal. So students can log in, they can lodge scholarship applications, and then staff can log in, review those applications, and determine whether those students are eligible or not. Now, right now in this application, there's nothing really here except the ability to log in, and that's about it. So you can see I am logged in here, but there's nothing really else apart from a couple of admin tasks. There's nothing really else I can do here in this platform. So what we're going to do is we're going to kick off our clone to cloud process to turn this into our scholarship application with all of the functionality. So to do that, I would actually head over to our AEOS Compose platform. So Compose or AEOS Compose it's effectively our low-code platform. It's where we can run our clone to cloud process, but it's where we can also configure the application outside of that process and define the workflows and the behavior of that application. So you can see I'm actually in the project now, and these are the forms that currently exist in the application, which actually match, the forms that are already here, but we don't have anything for student scholarships yet. And so what I'm going to actually do is kick off our clone to cloud process. So I'm going to say I want the existing application. I'm going to go down playground. Now, because we're doing a Shadow IT use case here where we're coming from an Excel spreadsheet, I'm going to keep data dictionary selected here, which effectively means I want to come from an Excel spreadsheet. But if we were doing one of the other use cases, like the core system augmentation or the legacy system modernization, I'd probably be selecting, one of the other data types. Most of these are database servers or integration frameworks. Probably be selecting one of these for one of those other types of use cases. So I'm going to upload my spreadsheet here, and I'm going to click Generate Clone. Oh, I clicked the wrong button there. Yes. And so what that's doing is that's actually reading this spreadsheet, and I can show you what's in the spreadsheet here. So we can do this on any type of spreadsheet that you're using across the business. And we actually have a set of tooling to take any type of spreadsheet and convert it down into the format that we're looking at here. So within my spreadsheet, I have a number of sheets or tabs in here. And you can see that all these ones that start with a form and then a hyphen and a name, these are essentially the forms that we need to define within our application. So we can see that here within a student scholarship application, they need to include like the first name, middle name, last name, the course that they're studying, their address. And finally, we're going to have a field as well to indicate whether or not they're eligible for a scholarship. And you'll see that it is similar across all of the sheets going across along the bottom there. Now, moving back into AEOS Compose, you can see that clone to cloud, that initial clone to cloud process has completed. And I now have forms that represent all of the forms that existed in my Excel spreadsheet. And so I am actually now ready to deploy that. So I can click Build Dynamic Site. And what that's going to do is basically take all of the configuration that we have within AEOS, and it's going to rebuild the student scholarships portal here based on all the configuration that we have. Now we can actually watch that happening in real time. And if you're technical, then maybe this looks, well, it's about to start. But if you're technical, then some of this is mildly interesting. And what it's actually doing is it goes and it builds it builds the infrastructure layer, it builds sort of a microservices backend layer, it builds the front end layer, it packages that all up, and then redeploys that onto the same environment that I'm running on now. But rather than watching this, I'll actually go back to the slides and I'll take you through the broader clone to cloud process that we're following. So step one of our clone to cloud process, and what we've actually just watched me do, is where we ingest the data schema, or the data dictionary. And so that's actually what I've just done now. And what we do when we ingest that data schema, we'll often make optimizations to it, because especially when we're coming from legacy tech, usually there's all sorts of inefficiencies in the way that the data has been modeled. So we'll optimize that and normalize that. And then we use that data schema to effectively build a raw version of the application with all of the different data schemas already built inside it. So it'll have all the forms, it has all the APIs, it has all the database tables all created automatically after we have ingested that data structure. Now, what also happens as part of this first step is it actually produces migration scripts that allow us to take the existing production data out of your legacy data store, transform it into the new data structure, and then we actually do a test migration right up front to move your legacy data into the new application. And this is using what we call a data first approach. And what it means, one of the real risks of any modernization project is that at the end, you think you're finished, you come to sort of, testing it and deploying to production. And if you haven't done things in the right way, then doing that data migration can be, it's one of those things where you think you're almost done, and then you add on 6 months or a year at the end of the project because you hadn't thought about how you were going to do the migration properly. We actually test this up front in our step one, so that, as we move through the process, it's basically a non-issue. Now, step two is our reverse discovery process. We have two different mechanisms of doing this. Today, I'll actually demonstrate the database discovery. And that's where we run machine learning regression models across the data that we import to discover what the workflows and what the rules were that were associated with that data. And we can automatically apply those rules to the new application. And again, I will show that in a little bit more detail in a sec. The second is code-based discovery. Now, this one's only really relevant when we're talking about modernizing legacy applications. It's not so relevant for shadow IT use cases. But with code-based discovery, we've built a whole lot of tooling around generative AI that allows us to really analyze in great detail what the existing system is doing, understand the logic and the workflows and the edge cases of that existing system, and then automatically apply all of that to the new modern application that we're building in the cloud. And by using these two reverse discovery approaches, we generally find that we're automating anywhere from 50 to 98% of the application modernization process. So it allows us to really, really rapidly modernize those legacy applications. Now, the final step is polish and uplift. So as good as AI is getting, it doesn't do everything. There's always going to be a human element of testing and validation. There's always going to be components within the existing application that the AI can't quite understand, and that's where a human comes in, and we'll sometimes have to, manually step the agent, like the AI agent, through how it's going to do this, or manually configure it in the low-code platform in AEOS Compose. Another part of this is also when we're modernizing legacy applications, customers usually say, well, we want to modernize it, but we also want to make it better. Like if we could actually get some additional features or improvements as part of this modernization process, we'd love to do that. And often when moving to our platform, it's like, well, if you wanted to add some additional features, they really just become like, tick a checkbox and we can turn that feature on. And so we do all of that as part of the polish and uplift process. Now, that's effectively the end of the clone to cloud process. Just the last little bit I'll touch on there are connectors. So no application today really operates in isolation. All applications are integrated with upstream systems or downstream systems or other internal systems, external systems. And so we have a really robust integration framework, which allows you to easily configure integrations within the platform. And then on the page here is just a subset of the integrations that we have previously built. Coming back over here to our clone to cloud process. Success. So it looks like we have finished. So right now we don't have anything on the side panel here, but now I'm going to refresh the page. And with any luck, with any luck, we now have our scholarship applications. So this has now used that Excel spreadsheet to generate an application. Within this application, we can now create student scholarships. So we can enter our details in here, our address, and we can see the scholarship eligibility there. And we've also created a couple of forms here to configure what are the available cities and countries, and there's a utility here to import our data as well. So let's actually run the import data function here. So I'm going to upload some sample scholarship data. So this is 1,000 rows of scholarship data. And why I'm uploading this is A, to give you an idea of what the system looks like having a little bit of data in it. But B, once we've actually imported this data, we'll be able to run our reverse discovery on this data and find out what the business rules are. Now, for this particular application, how we're going to use reverse discovery is to determine whether or not a student should or shouldn't be eligible for a scholarship. And so, by uploading 1,000 existing records of data, we'll basically, we can see all the attributes of students who are eligible for scholarships. We can see all the attributes of students who are not eligible for scholarships. And then we can run that machine learning regression, well, we can run that regression model over it in order to determine what were the rules associated with deciding whether or not someone is eligible or not for a scholarship. So here's Sophia. And Sophia is eligible for a scholarship. You can see all the details here. So this is effectively what the portal would look like, if we had someone logging in to determine scholarship eligibility. What we would actually do to make the system more complete, I won't set it up in the interest of time today, but we would obviously configure the permissions so that when a student logs in, they don't see this field down here. And they wouldn't be able to see other people's scholarship applications. So really, a student logs in, they would be taken directly to this screen where they would, start entering their scholarship application. But then when an employee or a system user logs in, they can see all the existing scholarships and they can decide whether or not someone should or shouldn't be eligible for that scholarship. Now, let's move on to the rule discovery process. So what I'm going to do is move over to our workflow portal, and this is where we run our, this is a separate portal where we run our rule discovery process. So what I'm going to do, let me actually refresh this just to get the latest data. So what we want to do is set up our regression model. So the target column is what we're trying, it's sort of like, what is it that we're trying to, what is the column that we're trying to work out the answer to? So the answer for this one is eligibility. So we're saying we want to determine whether someone or not is eligible for a scholarship. And the feature columns are all of our other columns except for eligibility. And now we can say fit. And so what we're doing is we're looking at the values of all of these columns. And then determining, whether or not they are relevant to determining the eligibility of scholarships. So we can see we've actually produced a lot of rules here. And they're all around age, citizen or PR, or studying full time. I don't think any other, there's less than 26 as well. So what we want to do just to start simplifying this is getting rid of some of the feature columns which are not relevant. So gender does not appear here at all. So let's get rid of that. And for these types of machine learning models, they don't work that well when you're using sort of integers like this, which can have lots of different values. They work much better with true or false statements. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to remove the age column there, but just leave the less than 26 column, because that is effectively, I think it is down here, that is effectively telling us whether or not the person is less than 26. So let's hit fit again. And that's going to run again. Now you can see it's come up with a number of different rules. We're actually looking for the rule which has the highest absolute value across these three fields, which happens to be this one here. But we can also get a visual representation of what that looks like. So let's actually go to our data visualizer here. And what this actually shows us is that all of these different pathways are different ways for a student to be not eligible for a scholarship. But the one at the top here, this is the only pathway where someone is eligible for a scholarship. And this pathway is where they are studying full time, they are a citizen or have PR, and they are less than 26 years of age, which actually exactly matches this rule here. And so what we can do then is we can actually just tick this rule, we can hit generate workflow, and that has now generated a workflow here, which basically specifies that if a scholarship application is created and it matches this criteria, then the eligibility will automatically be set to true. Now, in practice, how this is, a little bit of a naive or contrived example, like in practice, how customers are typically using this is you've got your clear-cut yeses, and you might automatically set them to yes. You've got your clear-cut no's, you might automatically set them to no. And then there's always a gray area of maybe. And so a realistic workflow is that we can automatically say yes or no to a percentage of, in this case, student applications. And then you're going to need a person to actually review other like the gray area ones, or request for more information if they need more information to make the decision. So that's a little bit of an overview of how we would ingest a Shadow IT Excel spreadsheet and then turn that into working software. We've also touched on elements of how we would solve for core system augmentation and for legacy application modernization. So the other two use cases that we talked about earlier. The last thing that I wanted to just touch on was, this is obviously the system I've shown here is a fairly simple, it's a simple looking system. I did want to also just show you what does a more fully featured application that we've built before actually look like. And so I have an example sort of CRM and service management system that I can show you today. So if we start on the CRM section, we can see that, this is what like a CRM might look like built in our platform, where we've got a set of clients. Those clients have contacts associated with them, but we can also see the full list of contacts here. With all of our forms, you can search, sort, filter, and edit in line, and all of that can be turned on or off as well. So as an example, if I wanted to find Cloud9 Kitchens here, and I could either search, I could do a search here in the company name, I could do a filter here, I could search up here for cloud, and you can see it comes there. So the platform is very capable at data management and at producing forms and lists of data, and it really excels in that area. If I was to move on to something a little bit more complicated than just the CRM, let me have a look at some opportunities here. Open up an opportunity so we can see, this is what an opportunity might look like in our platform. This particular CRM here actually has a CPQ built into it. And so we can see the quote that has been generated on the back of this opportunity. So we do have a built-in engine to generate like PDFs, and you can basically upload templates, and then we can generate PDFs from the templates. It's got built-in communication portals, so we can send SMSs and emails out of the box. And then I guess an even more complex page here, if we wanted to model a very complex product. Now, I'm not sure. Okay, I have selected a good one here. So here's like a sample product configuration tool. Now this CRM was modeled after a marketing organization. So you can see here the types of products that they had were sort of, portable signage and banners and displays. So you can see all the different product configuration here, how that maps across to like an actual cost to produce that product. And then we've even got, this one's not particularly exciting, but we've even got a little 3D view there. I can zoom in and make it a bit bigger. We've even got a little 3D view there of what that looks like. So look, that was just a little insight into what a much bigger application might look like running on our platform. Thank you for taking the time to join us today for the demonstration of our platform. Feel free to reach out if you did have any further questions or if you wanted to or wanted to chat about something else.